Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, I welcome you to the course Nursing Research and Statistics. So today we will be discussing quantitative research designs part 2. In the part 1 of quantitative research designs we talked about experimental research designs, and today we will be discussing non-experimental research designs. I am Dr. Harmeet Kaur Kang from Chitkara University, Punjab. Let us see what are the learning outcomes of this lecture. So at the end of this lecture, you will be able to describe the different types of non-experimental research designs. Then what are the reasons for using non-experimental research designs? And third one, we will be discussing about strengths and limitations of non-experimental research designs. So first of all, let us see what are non-experimental research designs. So non-experimental research is a research that lacks the manipulation of an independent variable and random assignment of participants to condition or order of condition or both. So what is non-experimental research design? Here we do not manipulate the independent variable. So here whatever phenomena is occurring in the natural setting is studied. The variable, the particularly independent variable is not manipulated. So there is no introduction of intervention. Second thing is there is no random assignment of participants to conditions or orders of conditions or both. Here we do not randomly assign the participants to certain conditions. As the participants are available with some characteristics, we include them in our research study and we try to study them as naturally the phenomena are occurring. So you need to remember that in the non-experimental research design, the researcher is having a passive role. He does not introduce any new intervention, he does not manipulate the independent variable, and there is no random assignment of the subjects to any conditions. Now we need to know that what are the reasons for undertaking the non-experimental research design. In the last lecture, when I discussed about the experimental research designs, I told you that experimental research designs provide the best quality evidence and those are the best designs. But still, why researchers go for non-experimental research design? So let us see what are the reasons. First one is vast number of human characteristics are inherently not subject to experimental manipulation. So there are many phenomena, many variables of the human characteristics which we cannot study experimentally. For example, if we talk about the beliefs of the people, if we talk about the disease conditions of the people, their personality characteristics, we are not able to change that, we are not able to manipulate. So we need to study those particular characteristics in a non-experimental way. Second thing is, there are many variables that could technically be manipulated but could not be manipulated ethically. So many times there are variables which may think that we should manipulate and then study, but ethically that is not right. For example, if we want to study the effect of the antenatal care on the pregnancy outcomes. Now here we cannot manipulate the antenatal care. Can we do that one group of the pregnant women will get the antenatal care and the other group will not get? It is not ethically right that if we are not providing the antenatal care to one group. So it is best to study it through the non-experimental way, where we can take the women, pregnant women who have taken the antenatal care properly, and that can be a one group, and another group may be a group of the pregnant women who have not utilized the antenatal care services. So then we can compare their pregnancy outcomes, and that can be studied non-experimentally. So this type of variables which we cannot manipulate ethically, it is better to study through non-experimental research designs. Third one is, there are many research situations in which it is simply not practical to conduct a true experiment. Sometimes the variables we can manipulate ethically, also it is right to manipulate, but there are so many constraints, it is not easy to conduct the experimental research designs. So because of those constraints, we may have to go for non-experimental research designs. So what are the constraints which may be there? It may be insufficient time, you may not have time, or lack of administrative approval. So many times particularly the clinical studies, admin approval is very difficult. Third thing is excessive inconvenience to patients or staff. Maybe your manipulation or intervention might be causing inconvenience to patients or staff, so they may not allow you to conduct that study. Or lack of adequate funds. Sometimes for the experimental research studies, you may be needing some equipments, you may be needing some funds which may not be available to you. So then you may think of conducting the non-experimental research design. Next reason is that some research questions are not appropriate for experimental designs. This is especially true for descriptive studies. So all the phenomena or variables need not to be studied through experimental designs. Sometimes we need to know more about the phenomena. We need to go for description of the phenomena. So there we need non-experimental research design rather than the experimental research designs. So there can be some descriptive studies which seek to document the characteristics, prevalence, intensity or full nature of phenomena. So through non-experimental research design, we can describe the characteristics, we can describe the prevalence, intensity and full nature of the phenomena. Another reason is that sometimes non-experimental research is needed before an experimental study can be planned. So before we plan the manipulation or intervention through the experimental research design, we may need to understand the phenomena, we may need to describe the phenomena, or sometimes we may need to describe the relationship between certain phenomena, and then we can, in the second stage, we can go for the experimental research designs. So sometimes non-experimental research is a need before the experimental research design. So these are some of the reasons for undertaking the non-experimental research designs. Now let us talk about different types of the non-experimental research designs. So non-experimental research designs can be correlational designs. Correlational name only says where we try to find out the relationship between different variables. It can be descriptive design where we try to describe the phenomena under study. Or it can be exploratory design where rather than describing, we try to explore the factors which might be causing or which might be antecedents for that particular phenomena. So these are the different types of the designs under the non-experimental research designs. So we will be discussing all these designs one by one. First one is correlational design, or we can also call it as ex post facto design. This ex post facto is a Latin term. So it means from after the fact. So from after the fact means once the fact has occurred or phenomena has occurred, after that we try to study. So this means that study has been conducted after the variation in independent variable has occurred. So once the independent variable variation has already occurred, then we start studying the phenomena. So ex post facto research is more often referred to as correlational research. Why we call it as correlational research? Because here we try to find out the relationship between different variables. So basically a correlation is an interrelation or association between two variables, that is a tendency of variation in one variable to be related to variation in another. So how if one variable is changing, how it is changing the other variable. So what type of relationship between the variables is there, that is studied through the correlational research. Basic purpose of correlational research is to understand the relationship, that you need to understand that it is to find out the relationship among variables. However, cause and effect relationship cannot be inferred. That should be very clear to you, that correlational research designs do not give us the information about cause and effect relationship. It simply gives us understanding about the relationship between the variables, that if one variable is changing, how the other variable is changing. But it doesn't mean that it is telling us or it is describing that one variable is causing the other. Cause and effect relationships can be inferred only through experimental research designs. So in correlational research, investigators do not control the independent variable which has already occurred. So as I have already told you while we were defining the non-experimental research designs, that here the investigator do not control the independent variable which has already occurred. So here independent variable has already occurred and there is no control by the researcher on the independent variable. One important type of correlational research design is retrospective design. So retrospective designs are the ones in which a phenomena existing in the present is linked to the phenomena that occurred in the past before the study was initiated. So retrospective design means the phenomena we are studying in the present, we try to link it to the phenomena that has occurred in the past. So it means we try to find out the phenomena which has occurred in the past which might have resulted in the present phenomena. That is, that researcher is interested in a present outcome and then attempts to determine the antecedent factors that caused it. So we start with the present outcome, but then we go backward. We go backward and we try to find out the antecedents or reasons or causes for the present outcome. And the retrospective studies are often cross-sectional. Cross-sectional means we collect the data only once in a point of time. So it means once only we collect the data, with the data on both dependent and independent variable collected once simultaneously. So maybe we can start with the present phenomena. For example, we can start with the patients who are having the lung cancer, and then we try to find out that what are the causes or antecedent factors which might have occurred in those patients. So then we can think of taking two groups. One group might be having the lung cancer and another group may not be having the lung cancer, and then we can try to find out that what type of behaviors or what type of lifestyle they were having, the patients who had lung cancer and were staying in the same area, and the other patients who did not have the lung cancer, what type of lifestyle they were having. So it means we are interested in the present outcome, that is lung cancer, but then we are going backward and we are trying to find out the antecedent factors which might have caused the lung cancer. So case control design is a type of retrospective design that involves the comparison of cases. Matching of the groups need to be taken care. So case control is like just now I have given you example that one group we can take who had the present outcome, those are taken as cases, and the control can be a group where they do not have that particular presence of that particular phenomena, so they can be acting as a control. But whenever we are taking these two groups, we need to see that matching of the groups need to be taken care, means their characteristics, their demographic characteristics should be matching, then only we will be able to compare these two groups. So example is, for example, a retrospective design in the study of factors contributing to the onset of irritable bowel syndrome. So we may start with the phenomena of irritable bowel syndrome, and then we do a retrospective study to find out the factors which might have caused the onset of irritable bowel syndrome. So the researchers compared samples of women with and without IBS. So they took the women who were having irritable bowel syndrome and who were not having irritable bowel syndrome in terms of their history of sexual and physical abuse. So they started studying about their history, whether they had any sexual abuse or physical abuse, and they found that abusive experiences were more prevalent among women with IBS. So they try to show that IBS is related to the abusive relationships or type of the abusive experiences. So this is a very good example of a retrospective design. Another type of correlational research design is prospective non-experimental research design. So prospective design means it starts with the presumed cause and then goes forward in time to the presumed effect. So it is opposite to the retrospective. In the retrospective design, we started with the presumed outcome, or not presumed, the present outcome, and then we try to study their history. But here in prospective design, we start with the presumed cause and then go forward to the presumed effect. So prospective designs are often longitudinal. Longitudinal means here we do not collect the data at one point of time, but we try to collect the data at different times times, so that we can get to know that how the presumed cause is resulting in the presumed effects at different times. But it may also be a cross-sectional design. Sometimes the researcher may collect the data only once in a point of time. If reliable information about the independent variable is available in records or existing data sources, then we may go for the cross-sectional research designs. The example of prospective research design is a prospective cohort study to examine clinical and cost outcomes of early versus late tracheostomy in patients who require prolonged mechanical ventilation. So here, this is a cohort study. Cohort means we take a group with same type of the characteristics, maybe age related or with same disease condition. So we take a group. So prospective cohort study was this study was done to examine the clinical and cost outcomes of early versus late tracheostomy. So they took the patients who had undergone the early tracheostomy and a group who had undergone the late tracheostomy, and then they studied them in future, that what were their clinical and cost outcomes based upon the time period of their tracheostomy. So this is a typical type of a prospective study where they started with the presumed cause. So here presumed cause is early or late tracheostomy, and the presumed effects they have studied through their clinical and cost outcomes. Another important type of correlational design is natural experiments. Now name only says here the researchers are sometimes able to study the outcomes of a natural experiment. So here we study the natural experiments, means sometimes some groups are exposed to natural phenomena. Then we can study the effect of that natural phenomena on their health consequences. So researchers are sometimes able to study the outcomes of a natural experiment in which a group exposed to natural or other phenomena that have important health consequences are compared with a non-exposed group. So one group might be exposed to a natural phenomena, for example natural disaster, it may be an earthquake, it may be a tsunami, or any type, for example gas tragedy. So we may take a group who was exposed to that natural disaster or natural phenomena, and one group who was not exposed, and then we can study them, that what is the effect on their health consequences because of that natural phenomena. So such natural experiments are non-experimental because the researchers does not intervene. So why we are calling these as natural experiments? Because it is naturally occurring. Here researcher has not manipulated independent variable, but these are the naturally occurring phenomena. So this is a type of non-experimental research design. So here researcher does not intervene, but simply observe the outcome of an external event or circumstance. So here the researcher simply observes that because of the exposure to that particular phenomena, what type of outcomes are resulting. They are called non-experiments when people are affected essentially at random. So natural experiments, why we are calling them? Because here maybe some people are exposed and some are not. So they are affected at random. So we may study the exposed and non-exposed people, and then we may study their outcomes in the long term. So example here is the psychological well-being of the people living in a community struck with a natural disaster, for example hurricane, could be compared with the well-being of the people living in a similar but unaffected community to determine the toll exacted by disaster. So here the natural disaster is the independent variable, and then we try to find out the well-being of the people. So here the two groups, you can say the one group was the people who were living in a community which was struck with the natural disaster, and the other who were living in the similar condition but unaffected because of the natural disaster. So they can be studied for their health outcomes. So this is a typical example of a natural experiment. Third important category of non-experimental research designs is a descriptive research. So descriptive research is not necessarily studying the relationships between the variables, but here these studies are conducted to observe, describe and document the aspects of a situation. So sometimes the phenomena, how they are naturally occurring, we just try to observe and we try to describe and document those phenomena. And sometimes to serve as a starting point for hypothesis generation or theory development. So these descriptions The next important broad category of non-experimental research designs is descriptive research. So descriptive research does not necessarily try to find out the relationship between variables, but the purpose of descriptive research study is to observe, describe and document the aspects of a situation as it naturally occurs. So how the phenomena is naturally occurring, that is observed, described and documented, and sometimes to serve as a starting point for hypothesis generation or theory development, because here we are studying a phenomena and we are trying to describe that phenomena So through that description, we may be able to generate some hypothesis, or we may be able to develop the theory based upon that description of that particular phenomena. So these types of the designs are the descriptive research designs. Although researchers often focus on understanding the causes of behavior, conditions and situations, but sometimes they can do little more than describing the relationship without comprehending the causal pathways. So mostly we try to find out that what are the causes of behavior or some situations or conditions, but through descriptive studies, rather than just finding out the relationship, we try to find out that what is the phenomena and how is it occurring, so we can describe that phenomena in depth. So aim of the descriptive correlational research is to describe the relationship among variables rather than to infer cause and effect relationships. So under descriptive correlational studies, we are having descriptive correlational research where we try to describe the relationship among the variables. But here it is only explaining the relationship, not the cause and effect relationship. So in non-experimental research designs, always you need to understand that the studies cannot give you the information about cause and effect relationship between the variables. Descriptive correlational studies are usually cross-sectional. Cross-sectional means we collect the data at one point in time. So example of a descriptive correlational research design is to study to assess the relationship between body image perception of postpartum women and their weight. So here a descriptive correlational study has been done where the researchers try to find out the relationship between body image perception of the postpartum. So here they will study and describe the body image perception of the postpartum women, and they will also be describing the weight, and then they will be describing the relationship between the body image and the weight of the postpartum women. So under the descriptive designs, another design is univariate descriptive studies. So some descriptive studies are undertaken to describe the frequency of occurrence of a behavior or condition rather than to study relationships. So here these types of the descriptive studies are particularly undertaken to describe the frequency of occurrence, that how many times this particular behavior is occurring or how important this behavior is, rather than to study the relationship. For example, an investigator may wish to describe the healthcare and nutritional practices of pregnant teenagers. So here the researcher may be interested to describe that how the healthcare and nutritional practices of pregnant teenagers is present. So that can be simply described. Univariate descriptive studies are not necessarily focused on one variable. So you need to remember that univariate does not mean that we study only one variable. Here we can study the multiple variable, but then we try to describe each and every variable individually rather than showing the relationship between those variables. So for example, a researcher might be interested in women's experiences during menopause, and here the study might describe the frequency of various symptoms. So what are the various symptoms during menopause, the average age at menopause, the percentage of women seeking the formal health care, and the percentage of women using the medication to alleviate symptoms. So here you can see that researcher is not studying only one variable, but researcher is studying number of variables which are related to the menopause. But each and every variable is described individually by the author rather than showing the relationship between these variables. So this is a typical type of a univariate descriptive research study. Multiple variables can be studied, but the primary purpose is to describe the status of each and not to relate them to one another. I have already explained this particular point. Another important descriptive type of research is path analytic study. Path analytic study is a very good type of non-experimental research design. So here researchers can test the theories of causation. Earlier I was again and again telling you that non-experimental research designs do not tell us the cause and effect relationship. But through the non-experimental researches we can study the theory of causation using the technique path analysis. So path analysis is also sometimes called the causal analysis. So here particularly we use the sophisticated methods of the statistics. So sophisticated statistical procedures are used and researcher tests a hypothesized causal chain. So here we may have different set of the independent variables. We may have mediating variables and dependent variables. So we may have like 2 or 3 independent variables, different phenomena, and there might be some mediating variables which might be resulting in some dependent variable. And through the statistical procedures we can test the theory of causation, because we will be studying that this particular independent variable, if it is there, then if this particular mediating variable is there, it can result in outcomes in the form of dependent variable. So that particular type of path analysis can be done through the statistical procedures. You might have heard structured equation model. So through structured equational modeling we present those variables, that how these variables are related with each other and what are the antecedent factors and what are the mediating factors and what are the dependent factors or consequences of those particular independent and mediating variables. One example of path analysis is, here the researcher have done a path analysis to test a model to predict self-care in adults awaiting renal transplantation in Ontario. So they tested a model to predict the self-care in adults. So the patients who were awaiting the renal transplantation, so they predicted the self-care. So their analysis tested the hypothesized causal pathway between personality traits. So personality traits of the renal patients, their health status, their self-care abilities, and how the self-care behavior is affected. So here they just try to present a model of the relationship between these different concepts. So here you can see that personality trait and health status can be an independent variable, and the self-care ability is a mediating variable, and self-care behavior, which is resulting because of the personality traits, health status and self-care ability, can be a dependent variable. So this is a very good example of a path analysis. We must discuss about the epidemiological descriptive studies also, because in epidemiology particularly we study a number of subjects to find out prevalence, to find out the incidences of certain diseases in the community. So first of all, let us discuss about the prevalence studies. So prevalence studies are done to determine the prevalence rate of some condition. So we may try to find out the prevalence of a disease or prevalence of a behavior at a particular point in time. So at that particular point in time, what is the prevalence rate of some condition? Maybe, for example, we may discuss, nowadays we are finding out that what is the prevalence of COVID-19 patients in a particular community at a particular time. So prevalence studies rely on cross-sectional design. So here cross-sectional designs are used in which data are obtained from population at risk of the condition. So we collect the data from the subjects who are at risk of that particular disease. And researcher takes a snapshot of the population at risk to determine the extent to which the condition of interest is present. So here, rather than studying the whole population, we try to study the subjects or population at risk. A sample is studied and then we try to find out the prevalence of a particular disease. The formula for point prevalence rate is number of cases with the condition or disease at a given point in time divided by number in the population at risk of being a case. So here, what is the population and how many cases with the condition were found at a given point of time into K. So K is number of people for whom we want to have the rate established. So here we may want per 100 or per 1000 population, then we can give the point prevalence rate. Then we can present that maybe 16% if it is per 100, 16%, otherwise we may say 16 per 1000 population are at risk of getting this disease, or we can say that point prevalence rate is 16 per 100 or 16 per 1000 population. Another type of epidemiological research, descriptive research design, is incidence studies. So incidence studies are used to measure the frequency of developing the new case. So what is the frequency of developing the new case of any disease or any behavior? That is studied through the incidence studies. Here, longitudinal designs are needed to determine the incidence because the researcher must first establish who is at risk of becoming a new case, that is, who is free from condition at the outset. So we need to determine that how many persons in your population are not having that particular disease, but they are at risk of getting that disease. So that has to be established first, and then you keep on studying the frequency of developing the new cases out of the population at risk, and based upon that you find out the incidence of that particular disease. So the formula for an incidence rate is number of new case with the condition or disease over a given time period divided by number at risk of becoming a new case, that is free from condition at the outset, into K. So here you need to remember that here we have to study that how many new cases or condition over a given time period. So this given time period can be 1 year, it can be 5 years, it can be 10 years. And then we need to find this incidence based upon the number of people in the population who are at risk of becoming a new case, but at that time they were free of condition at that outset, into K. So this K is your per 100 or per 1000. Prevalence and incidence rates can be calculated for subgroups of population, for example for men versus women. So we can also calculate it for the subgroups, that for men what is the prevalence and for women what is the prevalence or incidence. When this is done, then through these particular rates it is possible to calculate the another important descriptive index, which is known as relative risk. So what is the relative risk? Relative risk can estimate of risk of caseness in one group compared with another. So through the relative risk calculation we can estimate that what is the risk of getting that disease in one group as compared to another. For example, we may say that what is the risk of getting a disease or condition in men as compared to women. So relative risk is computed by dividing the rate for one group by the rate for another. So if we are having the rate for men and rate for women, then if we divide that we can get the relative risk. Suppose we found that 1 year incidence rate for depression was 6 per 100 for women and 4 per 100 men. So now we know the rate of depression for women and rate of depression for men. So relative risk we will be calculating rate for women divided by rate for men, so it comes as 1.5. So what does it mean? So relative risk is 1.5. So it means women's relative risk for developing depression over 1 year period would be 1.5, that is women would be estimated to be 1.5 times more likely to develop depression than men. So relative risk gets us the information that how the women are, or how a one group is at risk of getting that particular disease or condition as compared to the another. So here, as our relative risk calculation comes out to be 1.5, so it means that women will be 1.5 times more likely to develop depression than men. Okay, now let us talk about the strengths and limitations of the correlational research design. First of all, we will discuss the limitations. So relative to experimental and quasi-experimental research, they are weak in their ability to reveal the causal relationships. So again and again I am telling you that in particularly non-experimental research designs, we cannot say that the relationship is type of a cause and effect relationship. We can simply give the information about that what is the relationship between the variables, but we cannot say that one particular variable is causing the another variable. So that is one limitation of the non-experimental research design. Although I talked about natural experiments, but natural experiments also these are good type of the experiment non-experimental research designs, where we can say that particular natural disaster might have resulted in certain health outcomes, but still because maybe we cannot say that both the groups were comparable in relation to their own characteristics, so we will not be 100% sure about the cause and effect relationships. Second one is correlational studies are susceptible to faulty interpretations, as researchers work with pre-existing groups that were not formed at random but rather by self-selecting process. So particularly here we self-select the groups for our non-experimental research studies. So here we cannot say that one particular variable is occurring because of the other variable, because whatever groups we are taking, they are having their pre-existing conditions, and we are not taking them into the group at random. So as we are not selecting them randomly, so we cannot say that particular variable is causing the another variable, because the effect or outcome can be related to many variables which might be their own demographic variables also. There might be so many extraneous variables which might be affecting the outcome. So that is the main reason that in the correlational studies particularly we never talk about the cause and effect relationships. We always say that there is a relationship, but this cannot be called as a cause and effect relationship. And many interesting problems in the field of nursing, psychology and social sciences are not amenable to experimentation. Those problems can be studied using the correlational research design. So this is the strength of the correlational research design, that many problems, as I have already told you, that many problems, particularly for example if we talk about personality, if we talk about health beliefs of the people, those studies, those particular phenomena cannot be studied through experiments. So then it is better to study those studies through the correlational research designs. Second strength is correlational research is often an efficient means of collecting a large amount of data about a problem, because here we are collecting the data in the natural setting. As the phenomena naturally occurring, we collect the data, and mostly we collect the data at one point in time. So at a time we can collect the data from many subjects. So it is an efficient means of collecting a large amount of data about a problem. For example, if you are using a survey method, so you want to study the nursing students about their attitude towards the nursing profession. So at a time you can get the data from many students, and this is a very efficient mean of collecting a large amount of the data. Finally, correlational research is often strong in realism and therefore has an intrinsic appeal for solving practical problems. So, when I talked about the limitation of experimental research design, I told you that many a times researchers criticize the experiments for their artificiality. So, that artificiality is not present in the non-experimental research designs, because here we are studying the phenomena as they are naturally occurring in the real world. So, we are studying them in the reality. We do not manipulate, we do not artificially change the independent variable. So here that is why this is always a good type of research design which is strong in realism and which is having an intrinsic appeal for solving the practical problems, which are the natural problems which occur in the human subjects particularly. Another important category of non-experimental research design is exploratory research design. So name only says here we try to explore more about a phenomena about which we know little, or little is known about that particular phenomena. So here exploratory research is defined as a research used to investigate a problem which is not clearly defined. So if any problem or phenomena is not clearly defined, we can go for exploratory research design where we try to explore that particular phenomena. So it is conducted to have a better understanding of the existing problem but will not provide conclusive results. So we try to understand that problem through studying different factors which might be causing that particular problem, but we do not give the conclusive results because we are not using the experimental research design, we are simply using the non-experimental research designs. Example, a study to explore the factors responsible for medication adherence among diabetic patients. So here the researchers, they try to explore the medication adherence among diabetes patients. So they explored different factors which might be responsible for medication adherence or non-adherence among the diabetic patients. So whenever we need to study a phenomena through exploratory research design, we try to explore everything about that particular phenomena through number of methods. So let us see what are those methods which are used to explore through the exploratory research design. See here, we use different methods. We may use literature review to study more about that particular phenomena. We may do case study research, or we may do online research also. We may do an online research that what is known about this particular phenomena, or we may do a survey poll, we may interview the subjects, focus group interviews can be conducted, or certain phenomena can be observed to explore more. So there are number of methods which can be used to explore a phenomena about which little is known. So exploratory research is a very good research, non-experimental research study through which we can get more information about a phenomena which is not clearly defined. Okay, so these were the different types of the designs which are basically, we talk about the non-experimental research designs, but there are so many other designs which are not otherwise classified under experimental or non-experimental research design, and many of the researchers in the healthcare field, they go for these designs. So let us discuss these designs. So these designs can be based upon time frame. So time frame, like already I told you that these can be cross-sectional designs. So cross-sectional designs involve the collection of data at one point in time, and the phenomena under study are captured during one period of data collection. So cross-sectional research designs are the designs where we collect the data only at one point in time. okay, and we capture the data about that particular phenomena only at one period of data collection. And cross-sectional studies are appropriate for describing the status of phenomena or for describing the relationship among phenomena at a fixed point in time. So cross-sectional studies can be conducted in a non-experimental way or experimental way. Only thing is that we collect the data at one point in time. And these data are mostly appropriately be used to infer time sequence under two circumstances. So what are those two circumstances? One is when there is evidence or logical reasoning indicating that one variable preceded the other. For example, if we study the effect of low birth weight on morbidity on school age children. Now here we know that obviously birth will come first. So low birth weight comes first, and then we try to study them, that how the morbidity in school age children can occur. So there will be no confusion over whether birth weight come first or the morbidity in the school age children came second. So this is very clear. So here, as it is very clear that morbidity in school age children comes afterwards, so if we are collecting the data for the school age children who had low birth weight at their during their birth, so they can be studied through the cross sectional study design. Second thing is when a strong theoretical framework guides the analysis. When our research topic is based upon some important theoretical framework, so when it is already established that these particular phenomena occur and these phenomena, one phenomena precede the other, and strong theoretical framework is there, then we can go for the cross sectional designs and to infer the information based upon the time sequence. That particular phenomena is occurring and it might be related to certain other phenomena. So cross-sectional studies can also be designed to permit inferences about the processes evolving over time. Even though we are collecting the data at one point of time, but still we can get the inferences about process evolving over time, such as when measurements capture a process at different point in its evolution with different people. Here, if I can give you one example, that suppose we wanted to study the changes in professionalism as nursing students progress through a 4-year baccalaureate program. Now, if bachelor students are there and we want to find out that how the professionalism changes from the first year till they are going to the 4th year. Now, we can do a study in two ways. One way is that we take the students in the first year and then we keep on studying them till their 4th year. In first year, we give them a questionnaire for the professionalism. In second year, in third year and 4th year. But then that is not a cross-sectional design. That is a type of a longitudinal design. But how we can conduct the same study in the cross-sectional design is that if we are having all the 4 years different levels of the students, so we collect the data from first year students at that period, second year student at the same period, and the third year students at the same period, and 4th year. And then we can compare the professionalism between first, second, third and 4th year. So now here we studied the professionalism at different levels of the different levels of the students in the bachelor program of nursing, and we get to know that how the professionalism is differing from first, second and third and 4th year. But here we need to assume that whatever information or whatever professionalism the 4th years are showing, when they would have been in their first year, they would have shown the professionalism whatever the first year students in your study has shown. So through this way you can go for the cross-sectional study. So we can use a cross-sectional design by gathering data at a single point from members of the 4 classes and then comparing the responses of the 4 classes. Another design, a design which involves a comparison of multiple age cohorts, is sometimes referred to as cohort comparison design. So here we can take the cohort of different age groups and then we compare those different cohorts. The main advantage of cross-sectional design in such situation is that they are practical. So this is practically possible and easy to do because at a time you can collect the data from different cohorts, different age groups, and therefore they are relatively economical. There are, however, problems in inferring changes over time using a cross-sectional design. But sometimes so many questions can be raised about inferring the changes over time, because we cannot say that the same type of the cohorts would have been behaved in the same way when they were in the lower age group or in the higher age group. Another type of the research design based upon the time frame is longitudinal design. And longitudinal design can further be studied in different ways. One is trend studies, another one is panel studies, third one is follow-up studies, and fourth one is cohort studies. So we will be discussing all these types of the longitudinal designs one by one. So longitudinal design is that a study in which data are collected at more than one point in time over an extended period. So here we collect the data more than one point in time and over an extended period using a longitudinal design. And under the longitudinal design, we use the trend studies where the samples from a population are studied over time with respect to same phenomena. So here at different time, different samples can be taken from a population and they can be studied. So this does not involve the same sample. We do not study the same sample at different point of time, but at different point of time we can take the different sample from the same population and then we can see the trend of a particular disease or phenomena. So different samples are selected at repeated intervals, but the samples are always drawn from the same population. So that is there, that from the same population we draw the sample, but then different samples are selected at repeated intervals. So trend studies permit the researchers to examine patterns. So through the trend studies we get to know about the patterns of a particular disease or pattern of a particular behavior and the rate of change over time to predict future developments. So through this we get to know that how much change has occurred and how much change we can predict to occur in the future. Another type of the design, longitudinal design, is cohort studies. So cohort study are a particular kind of trend study in which specific subpopulations are examined over time and samples are usually drawn from specific age related subgroups. So here rather than taking general population as a sample, here subpopulations are examined, maybe age related subgroups can be taken and those age related subgroups can be studied over a time. Then another design is a cross-sequential design. Here two or more age cohorts are studied longitudinally so that both changes over time and generational cohort differences can be detected. Now here age cohorts are taken, two or more age cohorts, and then those particular cohorts are studied longitudinally, and then we see that over time in these age cohorts what are the changes which has occurred. So this is also a type of a trend study only, but here we are taking the cohorts related to the age. So this type of the particular design is known as cross-sequential design. Little different than these types of the design is a panel study. So panel study, how is it differing from the other designs like trend study, cohort design and cross-sequential design is that in panel study we take the same people, one sample if it is taken, the same people are used to supply the data at two or more points in time. So same sample is studied over time. The term panel refers to the sample of subjects providing data. Because the same people are studied over time, researchers can identify individuals who did and did not change and then examine the characteristics that differentiate the two groups. So in the panel, we take the same subjects and then we study them over time. And then we try to see that what is the difference in these two these people who you selected as a sample, and then you examine their characteristics for differentiating the groups. So panel study, I hope you have understood that in panel we are studying the same subjects over a period of time. Whereas in trend studies we take the different samples at different intervals. Even for the cohort also we take the different cohorts. Cross sequential we take the different age cohorts and then we try to study them. But in panel studies we are studying the same people over time. But only problem with the panel study is that there is chances of the attrition, because you are taking the same samples and you might be studying them for years. So then there might be a problem, because sometimes some people may move from that particular place and some may die. So there are chances of attrition that you may miss certain subjects till the time your final data collection is over. So panel studies also allow the researcher to examine how conditions and the characteristics at time 1 influence the characteristics and condition at time 2. So here we can even examine that at point of time 1 how the conditions were there and how these influence the conditions at time 2. Another type of the design is follow-up studies. So follow-up studies are similar to panel studies. Only thing is that these are particularly undertaken to determine the subsequent development of individuals who have had a specific condition or who have received a specified intervention. So maybe, for example, certain some patients who might be having a certain disease and they are provided some intervention and then they are studied longitudinally, that how that intervention is affecting them. So maybe we can study their health outcomes for a longitudinal or for a long period, maybe for years, 2 years or 3 years. We can keep on studying those people who got some interventions. So unlike panel studies which have sample drawn from more general population, here we get a sample from the individuals who have got specific interventions. So we use a sample purposefully. We take the subjects purposely who might have got some particular condition or who might have got some specific intervention. Whereas in panel studies we usually draw the sample from general population. Now what are the issues with the longitudinal design? The main issue is attrition. I have already told you that we may have the loss of participants over time, because here we study the participants over time. So sometimes we may lose the participants over time. So what is attrition? Attrition is a problematic because those who drop out of the study often differ in important ways from those who continue to participate, resulting in potential biases and lack of generalizability. Because here you are losing the participants and those participants may be differing a lot from the other people who continued to participate in your study. So which may result in biasness in your results, which may result in decrease in the validity of your results, and further it result in the lack of generalizability of your study. So with this we have completed the non-experimental research designs and other designs which cannot be classified under the experimental or non-experimental research designs. So let us summarize what we have studied today. We talked about the non-experimental research designs, which included descriptive research studies that summarize the status of phenomena, and we also talked about ex post facto or correlational studies that examine the relationship among variables but involve no manipulation of the independent variable. And there are various designs for correlational studies. retrospective designs which begin with the outcome and then look backward in time for the antecedent causes, and case control studies which are also retrospective studies, and here we test the hypothesis about antecedents caused by comparing the cases that have a disease or condition with the controls that do not have the disease or condition. Then prospective designs can be longitudinal studies, or sometimes we study cross-sectionally also, that begin with the presumed cause and look forward in time for its effect. So here we start with the presumed cause and then we continue to collect the data for the presumed effect. Then we talk about natural experiments. So natural experiments are comparison of groups in which one group is affected by a seemingly random event such as disaster and other is not, and then we try to find out that how that particular event or a disaster might have caused the changes in the health outcomes of those people. Another is path analytic study, where we talked about the test causal models which are mostly developed based upon a theory. Then cross-sectional designs involve the collection of data at one point in time, whereas longitudinal designs involve data collection at two or more points over an extended periods. And longitudinal studies which are used to study trends or changes or developments over time, those are known as trend studies. So multiple point of data collection with different samples from same population, and panel studies and follow-up studies where the same subjects are studied more than once. And longitudinal studies are typically expensive, time consuming, because we need to collect the data at different point in time and subject to risk of attrition, that is loss of participants over time, but can produce extremely valuable information for us. So this is the bibliography. I have used these two books. One is Pollitt and Beck, Nursing Research Principle and Methods, and another one is Essential of Nursing Research, Appraising the Evidence for Nursing Practice. So thank you. So this is the end of the lecture, Quantitative Research Design 1, which was the lecture 6, and now we will be meeting in the lecture 7, where we will be talking about the sampling methods. Thank you. Have a nice day.